Lloyd Vance does a great job covering the league, also a correspondent for the NFL Network, among others. Kind enough to join us on a Tuesday with OTAs in full gear, if you will. How you been, pal?
Doing great, Q. Thanks for having me on.
Always good to talk with you. All right, so we know there's going to be a couple players here and there who are going to miss these voluntary workouts. We see it. We are seeing it today with the Eagles. No Fletcher Cox, no Jason Peters. Dave gave Coach Doug Peterson several reasons and explanations to that as well. I know he addressed the media earlier this morning. On paper, including their draft picks, and I know it's hard to gauge it right now, so I don't want to get too carried away, but did the Philadelphia Eagles address, have they done enough? You know, you talk about the offensive and defensive side of the ball. A, did they give Carson Wentz enough weapons? And B, did they really address that secondary, that defensive side of the ball, in your estimation?
Well, Q, you know, a lot of people have been asking this question ever since they signed LeGarrette Blount, and everybody's getting all excited because they got a running back coming in here. And that was a position of need. We knew that. But everybody has to kind of pump their brakes, I think, in terms of what he brings to the table. 30-year-old guy. This is his fifth team that he's been on, and the Patriots kind of got rid of him for a reason. So we got to kind of wait and see there. I think they did a solid job in the draft, as we had talked about a couple weeks ago. But you pointed out a key thing. That secondary needed some work, in particular cornerback position. And I just don't know if they've done enough. They got Patrick Robinson, a guy who's been around the league for a while, bounced around, former first-round draft pick, underachiever, counting on him. Jalen Mills, Ron Brooks, kind of a retread guy. So these corners that allowed so many big plays in the last couple of years, I just don't know if they're going to be able to hold it down on the back end. Now, all that said, I think they've done a very solid job, and this team probably could go from 7 wins to about 9 wins at this point in looking at them. But it's still a little early to say they're ahead of the Dallas Cowboys and New York Giants.
Well, we'll get to those two teams respectively. I think one of the questions, too, we know that their biggest weakness on the roster is cornerback, and I think the depth chart is probably going to be unsettled throughout training camp. And you mentioned Mills. He's probably going to be the front-line starter, the front runner for the starting job. You have a third-round pick in Douglas, who's probably going to have the opportunity for some playing time. Ron Brooks, nice player, right? A key contributor. Robinson, you mentioned, he's a vet, but he's a former first-round pick who's kind of bounced around a little bit. You got that kid, Gratz, who might give a run here and there. So they're going to settle for 3 corners to play on the outside and in the slot. Here's the problem. I look at these guys, and if I'm a wide receiver, I'm not losing any sleep over these guys. And especially when you look at the NFC East and some of the weapons that the Redskins, the Giants, and the Cowboys have respectively.
Correct, and you have to look at the quarterbacks as well, and the Cowboys in particular. They have assembled an arsenal there with their 3-headed monster, with their great running back in Ezekiel Elliott, and Des Bryant, who's looking better and better in terms of being a leader and then ready to really step out and break out. And the Giants, as you're talking about, Brandon Marshall coming over, adding to Shepard, as well as Odell Beckham. So these teams are very dangerous, and the Eagles are going to have to get that pass rush. I know they're counting on that, bringing in Chris Long and drafting Barnett, that they can get enough heat there to kind of take the pressure off these corners. You know, in the past, I've seen their defensive ends get around 5.5, 6 sacks a game season, and that's just not going to be enough. So they're going to need to get consistent pressure. I know that Jim Schwartz does not like to blitz a lot, but they're going to have to get creative and get pressure on Eli Manning and Dak Prescott to they'll turn the football over to these corners. That's, let's face it, they're kind of pedestrian at this point.
You know, one of the points I brought up yesterday, we were talking about the NFC East, and obviously Dallas Cowboys had an outstanding season. They were also, I would say, the beneficiary of a very soft schedule. But, yes, they exceeded expectations with a rookie running back and a rookie quarterback. You give them their just due. I don't see them winning 13 games. And it's funny because, you know, you use the term step back, and right away people think, well, if it's 11 or 12, that's a step back. No, I'm talking that this team is probably going to win maybe 9 or 10. Like, I see them taking a step back, meaning you've got more film on them, you can crowd the line, and you can dare Prescott to beat you, which he wasn't able to do early on throughout the season. Mid-season, they started to let him open it up a little more. Late in the season, I still don't know if this is a quarterback that can make a play when you need him to make a play. 80 yards 2 minutes ago, timeout. and blitz, rearing down your grill. So you look at that situation. You look at the Washington Redskins as well with the mess with the GM. They lost 2 playmakers, key cogs in their offense, in Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson. Yes, they brought in Pryor. And then you look at the Giants. The Giants, again, on paper, offense, it's all nice, it's all well and good. But the problem with the Giants is they did not address their one glaring key weakness, and that's the offensive line.
Yeah, I agree with you. And this is going to be a very competitive division, and we've seen that the last couple of years. Yes, the 3 other teams in the division outside the Eagles all have winning records, so they're going to probably all be around that range. I'm thinking 11 wins is probably going to get it done in this division, but there's a lot of key games that all these guys are going to have to win on the road and prove that they're able to protect their quarterbacks. All their quarterbacks are, highly thought of around the NFL, but you have to protect them. You have to get a running game. And when you talk about the Giants, they have to find somebody to run the football and then open those holes. They need underachievers like Flowers and the rest of those guys to kind of step up because, let's face it, McAdoo is putting a lot of pressure on Eli Manning to get this done. You wonder if that Davis Webb draft pick is a sign of things to come.
Again, a couple minutes with Lloyd Vance. We'll take you up to 2 o'clock straight up. All right, so there's a couple of potential rules changes here and there that the NFL is looking at as far as with the roster to give some opportunities for those players on the bubble for that 4th preseason game. I'm more concerned about overtime. Here's my school of thought on this. Why not, A, just flat out get rid of overtime? And if you don't want to do that, then you just, no matter what, if a team scores on that first possession, then you allow that other team to have an opportunity to score. I mean, I don't. It just seems as though you're reinventing the wheel here. Is there that much of a difference from those that you've spoken to and the players that you talk to on a routine basis, 15 minutes to 10 minutes? Is that really a monumental difference?
Yeah, Q, and a lot of guys I've talked to, and I kind of agree with them. It's not going to make that big of a difference. And to be honest with you, I like the old overtime, the one we all grew up with, where the first team that scores wins. Let it just be that. I know everybody was upset that time Peyton Manning did not get his opportunity to touch the ball the second time. But, I think the onus is on the defense. Stop them, and their team will get the opportunity. So, they're tinkering around with this thing. They say this is going to be a one-year proposition, and they'll look at it again from there. But, ties are not that bad. You talk about 3-4 ties out of 256 games in a season. Is it really that big of a deal?
No, it's not. I mean, if anything, if you cut it down to 10 minutes, what's the likelihood someone's getting a 9-minute drive and then you have to worry about them just taking a knee late or kicking a field goal or punching it in and just not allowing enough time for the other team. But, yeah, you're still giving them a potential possession, if you will, whereas before that first time the team scores, it's pretty much all she wrote. Last one for you. So the owners are now trying to improve the measure to add another return from the IR spots. And I actually kind of like this because you're adding a second player per team to return from the IR. So you have that designated for return, which gives teams options for guys who can miss a couple months but not the entire year. So now you can kind of double up on that, and I like that. And there's a great example that PFT brought up. You had Tyvon Branch, the safety from the Cardinals, and Chris Johnson, the running back, were both on the IR the same day. So they were able to bring back Branch, but they had to shelve Johnson for the rest of the season. But I kind of like this.
Yeah, I like it. I like that they're going to give other people opportunities. Let's face it, a lot of times guys come into camp banged up for whatever reason. They have to go to physically on a perform list or the IR, and you want to give some of these guys a chance to come back and help their team because a lot of them are getting healthy later in this year. Let's face it, they're missing all of the hitting of OTAs and the training camp, and then they're able to get some help, whether they're working with the training staff or out on their own. So I think it's a great thing, and it'll help a lot of teams manage their 53-man roster. The interesting thing will be like when they bring an active guy on who they're going to cut or something like that. Now, I think you better watch out for this with the Eagles, with Sidney Jones, a guy that was hurt before the draft, and he's been injured trying to come back from Achilles.
That's a great point. All right, back on the field, last one for you. So we saw Ryan Fitzpatrick sign a contract with Tampa Bay. What's more likely to happen, Kaepernick signing first as a backup or RG3?
Oh, well, I'll go with Colin Kaepernick. I know a lot of people talk about he's blackballed and this and that. He just needs the right opportunity, and I think it may come with the Seattle Seahawks. Let's face it, that playbook is tailor-made for him. It wants a mobile quarterback with a strong arm. Those are things that he can do well. And Trayvon Boykin, their backup, has just gotten in a lot of trouble this past offseason with the law. So I think he'll get a chance. RG3, everybody I talked to around the league just is kind of very down on him in terms of his accuracy. Just has not been the same player since his great rookie season of 2012. So you wish both those guys the best, and hopefully they'll finally land a spot. But right now, the jobs are scarce because 90-man rosters are kind of filled.
Can I just kibosh that term, blackballed? I know you're not saying it. I don't recall a memo being sent out by the commissioner or the league saying, don't sign this guy. I don't know why people. Why are people still using that term?
They just, in the past, guys have been pushed out of the league for whatever reason. You may talk about a Ray Rice or something like that, whatever situation. It's just going to take an owner to give them the opportunity. So I don't think there's a lot of collusion going on at these owners' meetings where they're all sitting around saying no one's going to sign him. It's just, I think, a lot in terms of fit. Can they think a guy can acclimate to their system? And basically, will their community accept him? And to me, guess he has some issues out there, but it was nothing as bad as like when I covered Michael Vick coming to the Philadelphia Eagles.
I remember that. We had a lot of this.
The world blowing up.
No, we had it. I remember the day he signed, and we were talking about it. I mean, we remember wall to wall. We were taking calls on that. It seemed for 3-4 months, and then the whole argument was, well, I'll never watch an Eagles game. I'll never cheer for this guy. Well, guess what happened? The first time he started throwing touchdowns, people forgot about that. I mean, at the end of the day, you're not cheering the player. You're cheering the jersey. That's just a reality. It really is. So,
agreed.
All right, all right, my friend. Enjoy OTAs. We'll talk next week. I appreciate a couple moments.
All right, thanks for having me on.
All right, you got it. Lloyd Vance, good stuff.